On this episode, focus on leveling up. Hey everybody, this is The Quarter Show, and we've been talking recently a little bit about leveling up, as in video games, as in getting to the next level. And there are some parallels here in sales, and you know, you look at it, and it's all too easy to get comfortable at the same level. It's all too easy to not level up. It's all too easy to sort of keep doing the same thing that you've been doing, and you sell at a certain level, and you're not really keeping tabs on the level that you're currently at, and you're not trying to get to that next level. So maybe you're used to, closing and doing $1 million a year, or maybe you're used to doing $5 million a year or $10 million a year, depending on the company that you're in and depending on the sale value that you're in, and whatever that number is. It could be $200,000 a year. And you start doing the repetitive actions. You do the same actions and you do the same things, and essentially you're approximately at the same level as where you've always been. And it can get very comfortable when you get to a certain level in sales and you get pretty decent and you're selling a certain product or something like that. It can be sort of complacent and comfortable, and you don't level up. You don't go to the next level, and it can be hard to break out of that. But you have to challenge yourself. You have to challenge yourself to push into that sort of uncomfortable zone. Get rid of some of the things on your lineup or in your pipe that are no longer where you are as a salesperson as you do better, and perhaps get them off to one other rep or some of your juniors or whatever to free up your lines and things like that, and get focused on where you need to go, not where you've been. And that may mean that you have to start doing stuff that perhaps is uncomfortable to you. But here's the cool thing about it. Let's just say that you've always been selling something that's $10,000, and you go and work to pitch and close something. Let's say that's $200,000. It's a more complex product. The first time you close that $200,000 sale in that bigger product, or that bigger sale, that more complex sale, or whatever it is, you essentially level up, right? You sort of, it now becomes real, and you step into a new category where you realize that it can be done, it has been done, and you've done it. And you get comfortable with that new level, and you have a realization that what you're capable of doing, and therefore you've sort of come out of the level that you're in, and you've gone up to that level, and you start replicating that thing that you were doing. So you start doing that and going bigger there. But at first, to get there, it's uncomfortable. It's like the first time you drive somewhere, right? It always seems complex and longer than it should be, and then you do it over and over again, and you get used to it. And it's the same thing when you're sort of faced with breaking out and going into a new range. Maybe it's the first time you close, let's say, a Fortune 500 company, right? The first time you break into a Fortune 500 company and you go close them, it might be uncomfortable. You have to deal with procurement. You got to deal with certain people. You got to deal with certain levels of people that you hadn't dealt with before. And then you do it, right? And then you figure it out, and you kind of level up, and you keep doing it, and then you do it multiple times, and after a while it becomes the norm. But the first time you do it, it's scary and awkward, and there's things that you have to confront and that are challenging that you're not used to. And so when we say to level up, it's like you need to really look at it and say, well, what does level up mean? Like, what does it mean for me? Like, if you look at your current level and you say, how much are you doing per quarter, and what does your client list look like? The kinds of clients and the kind of products and sales that you're selling right now. What does it actually look like? What are you selling? And what is your current sort of ceiling, if you will? And really start tracking your statistics. Really start looking at your scoreboard. And you should know your own personal metrics. Like, what are your metrics? What are your daily metrics? What are your weekly metrics? How many sales are you making? Who are you selling? What does your client list look like? Keep track of those numbers. You need to know those numbers cold. What does your quarterly numbers look like? What do your yearly numbers look like? Don't look to your sales management for those numbers. You need to know those numbers cold. And then you need to look at it and say, well, if I was to break out and sort of level up and take my numbers up and maybe go into bigger sales or more complex sales or a bigger target public in terms of who we're selling, like I said, the Fortune 500 or something like that, and take on sort of the next level. What does that mean?
And very often that takes burning the midnight oil.
Yeah.
because a lot of times the targets that you're currently hitting are being relied upon. So you can't change and then drop your successful actions. So you got to put in extra time a lot of times, and really like Robert was just giving me the breakdown of where he wants me to go this morning. And we've gone over it a number of times, but it's going to require some extra work. I have to put together some things having to do with clients and some inroads in different areas and different packages I want to sell them. But I also can't drop out what I'm doing, because a lot of things rely on what I currently bring to the table. So you have to sometimes, to grow, you have to put in extra hours, or you have to really learn on the fly. Or you have to get a great mentor, or you have to read. You have to really learn about what you're moving into. But guaranteed, if you stay the same, you're in for trouble. Don't stay the same. You're either going to grow or you're going to shrink. I watch my stats and metrics all the time. All the time. I know exactly where I've been, where I'm at. I know where the company's at, where it's going, where it's been. I look at those stats all the time. So, you need to watch, you need to make sure that you are growing at all times. And then sometimes you go like this. You build a straw house. And that's a great product. You sell those. Those are $5 a pop. Then you go, I'm going to move into wood. Still building houses, not a big transition. Wood house, great. You sell those $100 a pop. And now you start building brick houses, and you sell them for $1,000 a pop. And then you find out you can only lay so many bricks in a day. And you're laying bricks, and you better become a general contractor. You better start bringing in other piggies to lay bricks, and start working out how to actually do that, right? So you got to put in extra hours, because you can't stop laying your bricks.
Yeah. You need to start looking at what does it take to level up, and every time we do it here, even when you close that sale that you haven't done before, or you confront that awkward situation, you navigate it into a close, you gain, quote unquote XP, experience points, and we kind of talk about that internally, half joking, but you kind of do. You just gain some XP because you close that deal that you didn't know how to do, and you now know how to do, and you now can go replicate it.
And the mistake is to think it's luck. The mistake is to think if this has happened to you and you've gone, well, it just worked out that way, or just a certain number of deals fell together that way. I definitely felt that way. The first time I hit a very, very big week, I was like, well, it just, Rob was like, that's good. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, good luck ever doing that again. And that's not right. We have another sales rep who's done a large amount in 1 week, and he had the same thought, and then he went and replicated it shortly thereafter. So you can't.
Once you crack a nut, you crack it, you can do it again. You can do it again and again and again. Even if, like I said, even using Fortune 500 example, it's maybe you're used to selling, let's say, the SMB market, the small to medium-sized business market, right? You're used to selling into that market, let's say. And you leveling up for you means that you need to go crack a Fortune 500 company, for example, and let's say that's the right audience for you, or maybe not Fortune 500, it could be just a $500 million company, or for you a big company, for example, but you hadn't done it before. So you need to look at what does it take to do it, so you can really push up against the next level and really start looking at how do you level up? What do you need to do to level up? And what do you need to do to break out of your comfort zone and go and do something that's maybe uncomfortable, but is going to help take you to the next level? Because once you do it once, it becomes real to you. You understand what happened. You understand what goes into doing it. And from there, when you do it, you should write it down so you understand, and you can now operate at that new level. And you can keep replicating it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And then you get good at that level, and then you figure out what does it take to level up again. And it's kind of a series of doing these different things. But one thing you want to stay away from is being complacent. And when you get really, really good, as Ben said, a great example is just that whole bricklayer thing. It's you get good at laying bricks, but you're not really. You're laying bricks and you're building those houses, but you're not really leveling up and going into the next thing of building cities or building skyscrapers, or graduating from a standpoint of you can't. Your capacity in that analogy is maybe one house every 6 months or something. You're like, oh, but I'm really good at doing that. It's that's great, but expansion, right? Expansion or growth or scale or whatever word you want to use. You have to push beyond that. And if you're like, well, I can't lay any more bricks, it's good. Well, you need to solve a bigger problem. You need to solve a bigger problem, which may mean that you need to stop doing that. You need to keep doing that to a level, and go crack the skyscraper thing, and then level up and pass that over or something like that pass that over perhaps, and then move up to this level, and then you get really good at that level. And I think that everybody's faced with this challenge. I think certainly when you have a new sales rep and they're kind of working their way up, you sort of have that ground floor stuff that you're working on. But if you're complacent, if you're very good at what you're doing and your numbers aren't moving, and they're essentially approximately, if you put them on a graph or on a timeline, they're approximately like year over year or month over month or quarter over quarter, they're approximately the same. You know, you need to really look at it and say, okay, what does it actually take to take it from here to here? You know, and how, you know, how do I break out of this range and go do something that's unusual or unordinary for me? And it's a different level and something that challenges me. And when I accomplish that challenge, I do sort of gain XP points and sort of go to the next level. And it's a funny analogy using video games, but it's similar, right? Because once you graduate to one level, now you're playing at a more challenging level. You know, you're playing at a bigger level, and there's more rewards, and there's more of this, and then more of that. It's similar, right? There's some similarities there.
And I know we got to end off here pretty shortly, but you know, you can look at it with sports. You can look at it with anything.
Sure.
You know, these fellows and gals, they observe the scene, they learn, right? They put in the extra time, and then they practice, right? They put in these factors where they really work at their craft. And yeah, there's some people who just have, maybe in sports, they have a physical leg up or something like that, but it's really not everybody. And the thing is, you know, there's no reason to think you're not one of those people with a lot of potential.
Oh, for sure.
If you think you're not one of those people with a lot of potential, though, that's a problem. But you should think you are, and if you think you are, then if you're going to go to that next level, you need to put in the extra time. You need to put in that extra observation of where am I at and where do I need to go, and then you need to plan to get there, and then do the actions.
And just challenge yourself to solve that problem, because I think all too often we can just get complacent with what we're doing, right? You get good at it, and that's what you do. You just keep doing the same thing over and over again, but you're not really challenging yourself to tackle that next big problem. Right. Jim Collins in his book talks about the big, hairy, audacious goal. You know, and it's kind of like, what is that big, hairy, audacious goal, or what is that big problem, the next big problem that you need to solve? And while you're working on these, you can also be working on this and say, I got to crack this thing, and once I crack this thing, I can make this the new normal, right? And I can figure that out. So always be challenging yourself. Say, how do I break out and how do I go bigger? Master what you're doing, but then really look at it, like, what does it take to level up, and what do I need to do to go there? Okay? Hope that helps. And we'll have more coming at you soon. If you like the show, share it. Make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe to the show, of course. And also, we certainly appreciate if you share it. All right? Thanks.